I remember the night I stopped crying for him. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, so quiet that even my tears refused to make a sound. I just sat there, staring at the ceiling, realizing that the person I had been waiting for was never coming back. And maybe he never really existed the way I thought he did. If you've ever loved someone so deeply that their absence feels like a hole in your chest, stay with me till the end. Like, subscribe and listen closely because this isn't just my story. It might be yours too. It began 3 years ago, back when I still believed that love was enough to fix a broken person. I met him on a rainy evening in Lahore, one of those unpredictable nights when the world smells of wet dust and new beginnings. I was late for my literature class, holding a book over my head to block the rain, when he appeared out of nowhere, tall, drenched, smiling like the storm didn't touch him at all. "You'll ruin your book," he said, his voice calm, amused. I laughed awkwardly. It's already half ruined. And that's how it started. Not with fireworks, not with grand gestures, but with a simple conversation beneath the rain. He offered me his umbrella that night, even though he was completely soaked. And I don't know why, but something in me whispered, "Remember this moment." Because it felt like the beginning of something I had been unknowingly waiting for. We started talking every day after that. At first, it was just casual, sharing notes, bumping into each other on campus, exchanging smiles that lasted longer than they should have. But soon it became more. The kind of more that makes you check your phone 100 times hoping to see their name. The kind of more that makes the world suddenly brighter, as if everything was painted in warmer shades of gold. He wasn't perfect, but he had this way of making me believe that I mattered. He listened, really listened. And when he spoke, it felt like the world went quiet for a while. He had dreams, big ones, and when he talked about them, his eyes lit up like a sky full of stars. And I wanted to be part of that sky. I told myself it was love. That's what love is, right? Wanting someone so much that their happiness becomes the center of your universe. But what I didn't know then was that when you make someone your entire world, they also hold the power to destroy it. The first time I realized something was changing, it was subtle. He stopped replying to my texts as fast as he used to. The late-night calls became shorter. And when we met, there was this distance in his eyes. The kind of distance that feels like a wall slowly rising between two hearts. I asked him once, softly, "Are you okay? You've been distant lately." Smiled. That same smile that once melted me, and said, "Just busy. You know how life gets." And I believed him, because love makes you blind. Or maybe love makes you see what you want to see. Weeks passed, then months, and I kept trying to hold on. 2 conversations that didn't feel the same anymore. 2 promises that had started to fade. To a version of him that no longer existed. There was one night, I still remember it so vividly, when we were sitting on the rooftop of his apartment, looking at the city lights. He was silent, his face half lit by the moon. And I said, "Do you ever think about forever?" He looked at me, hesitated, and said, "I don't know if forever exists." I smiled to hide the sting in my chest. But deep down, I knew. Something was breaking. I kept crying in silence after that night. Not because he stopped loving me, but because I could feel that he was slowly learning how to live without me. And there's nothing more painful than realizing someone is teaching themselves how to forget you. Still, I stayed, because leaving him felt like cutting off a part of myself. I told myself, maybe he's going through something. Maybe he just needs time. But the truth, he was already gone emotionally, quietly, beautifully gone long before I accepted it. The last message he sent me was short. "Take care of yourself." Just that. No goodbye. No reason. No explanation. I stared at those 3 words for hours, hoping they'd turn into something else. But they never did. That night, I cried like the world was ending. Every sob felt like a confession. Every tear felt like a goodbye. I kept asking myself what I did wrong, what I could have done differently. But the hardest part wasn't losing him. It was losing me while trying to keep him. For weeks after that, my world stood still. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, reaching for my phone, only to remember he wasn't there anymore. I'd walk past places we once visited, the coffee shop, the bookstore, and feel like the ghost of someone who once lived. And yet, I couldn't stop crying. Even when my eyes burned. Even when my chest hurt. Even when my friends told me to move on. Because how do you move on from someone who still lives in your memories? How do you stop loving someone who became a part of your story? But here's the thing about pain. It changes shape. At first it screams, then it whispers. And then one day it just stops making noise. I think that's what healing feels like, not forgetting, but learning to live with the memory without letting it destroy you. That realization didn't come easy. It came one quiet morning when I looked in the mirror and saw how tired my eyes had become, how my smile had disappeared. And I thought, he took so much from me. Why am I still giving him my tears? That was the day something inside me shifted. Not dramatically, but softly, like dawn breaking after a long, sleepless night. I decided to reclaim myself. Not through anger, not through revenge, but through acceptance. And it started with small things. Washing my bedsheets that still smelled like him. Deleting the playlist he made for me. Walking outside, breathing fresh air. And realizing the world still moved even without him in it. I began writing again. Not about him, but about me. The girl who loved too deeply, broke completely, and was still brave enough to start again. I know I'm not the only one who's been there. Waiting for a message that never comes. Replaying old memories like a broken film reel. But if you're listening right now, I want you to know you'll stop crying too. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday your heart will get tired of breaking and you'll finally choose peace. Because peace is what love should have felt like all along. And maybe that's what love truly is. Not holding on to someone who hurt you, but learning to love yourself enough to let go. If my words have touched even a corner of your heart, don't forget to subscribe and share this video. Because sometimes a story can heal someone who doesn't even know they're hurting. It's strange how memories can haunt you. Not like ghosts, but like echoes. Even when the sound fades, you can still feel the vibration deep inside your chest. That's how it was for me. Even after he was gone, his voice still lived somewhere in the silence. I remember the day we first said, "I love you." It wasn't planned. It wasn't perfect. It was quiet, just like everything that truly mattered between us. We were sitting by the lake, the one near the old library. The sky was turning orange, and the sun dipped behind the water like it was hiding from us. He was talking about his childhood, about how he used to skip stones and dream of leaving the city someday. And I was just watching him, the way his eyes softened when he talked, the way his voice cracked slightly when he said he never really felt understood before. And then he looked at me, not the way men usually look at women, but like he saw something fragile, something worth protecting. He said, you make me feel calm, like I don't have to pretend with you. And I said, maybe that's what love feels like. He smiled, shook his head, and whispered, "I think I love you." Those 4 words. They didn't hit me all at once. They sank into me slowly, like sunlight warming frozen skin. And when I finally whispered it back, I meant it with every part of me. I can still remember the smell of the air that evening, the damp earth, the faint perfume I wore, the way the wind carried his laugh. It's funny how our brains record those small details. It's like they know we'll need them later to remember how happiness once felt. For months after that, life was a blur of beautiful little moments. Long drives with music too loud, late night talks that turned into sunrise. Laughter over burnt pancakes, and promises whispered between half-asleep kisses. He made me feel seen, like every part of me, even the ones I hated, was worth loving. And I started to believe that maybe I could be someone's home, but love, I've learned, isn't just built on sweet moments. It's tested in silence, in distance, in doubts, in words left unsaid. And I started noticing the silence growing between us long before I admitted it. He began canceling plans. At first it was work. Then it was family. Then it was nothing, just excuses that didn't need to make sense anymore. Our calls turned into small talk, our texts into polite replies. And sometimes I'd sit staring at my phone, typing messages I never sent, wondering when exactly I became a burden. It's hard to explain what it feels like to lose someone who's still right there. To sit next to them and feel their mind drifting somewhere far away. It's like watching a house you built with your hands slowly crumble while you stand helpless in the doorway. One night, I finally asked, "Are we okay?" He didn't look at me. He just sighed and said, "You're overthinking again." I wasn't. I could feel the truth in the way his voice lost its warmth, in the way his eyes refused to meet mine. Still, I tried. God, I tried so hard. I wrote him letters he never read, bought him small gifts he forgot to open, and waited for messages that never came. I kept giving, thinking that maybe love was about endurance, about fighting harder when things start to fall apart. But love isn't a battlefield. Sometimes it's a quiet surrender, and slowly I began to see the cracks, the late replies, the sudden coldness, the way he started hiding his phone screen when I walked in. It was denial that kept me from seeing it sooner. Because when you love someone that deeply, your heart finds ways to protect them from the truth, even if it means lying to yourself. I remember the night everything shattered. It was a Friday. I had cooked dinner, his favorite chicken pasta with extra cheese. He said he'd be home by 8. By 11, I was still waiting. The candles I had lit were just pools of melted wax, and the food had gone cold. I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. When he finally came home past midnight, it smelled like perfume, not mine. His shirt had a faint smear of lipstick near the collar. He noticed my stare, laughed softly, and said, "Don't start, it's nothing." But nothing doesn't smell like roses. Nothing doesn't leave marks. Nothing doesn't break you without a sound. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I just stood there, staring at him, realizing that the man I once loved had turned into a stranger standing in my doorway. He said, "You're being paranoid." I said, "No. I'm just finally seeing." He didn't apologize. He didn't even deny it properly. He just looked at me with tired eyes and said, "Maybe we just outgrew each other." Outgrew each other. As if love was a pair of shoes that stopped fitting. As if years of laughter, tears, and memories could be outgrown like old clothes. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the same way I had the night I stopped crying. But this time, I wasn't crying yet. I was numb. Completely, painfully numb. The next morning, he was gone. No goodbye. No explanation. Just silence. I found his key on the table and a note that said, "I'm sorry. Please don't hate me." But I did hate him, not because he left, but because he made me believe he never would. Days turned into weeks. I went to work, smiled at people, and pretended I was fine. But inside, I was falling apart quietly, gracefully, the way strong people do when they don't want the world to notice. I avoided the places we went to, changed my route to avoid the streets that smelled like him, deleted our pictures, and yet he lived everywhere. I'd find him in the songs on the radio, in the smell of rain, in the reflection of a passing car. Even in my dreams, the cruelest of all, where he still held me the way he used to. And when I woke up, I'd reach for him before remembering he wasn't there. That's the thing about heartbreak. It doesn't just live in your mind. It lives in your body. In the way your chest tightens when his name comes up. In the way your throat burns when you hear his favorite song. In the way your hands shake when you see someone who looks like him. I thought healing meant forgetting. But healing is remembering without breaking. It's whispering their name and feeling nothing but calm. I wasn't there yet. Not then. But I was learning. And somewhere deep down beneath all that pain, I knew that one day I'd look back and thank the version of me that survived. Him, because she was stronger than she ever realized. If you're listening to this and your heart aches the way mine once did, I want you to know something. The pain won't last forever. It might feel endless right now, but it's not. You'll laugh again. You'll trust again. You'll fall in love again. Maybe not with someone else first, but with yourself. And that kind of love, that's the one that saves you. People say time heals everything. But they never tell you how time heals, that it doesn't happen in one sudden moment of clarity. It happens in small, unnoticeable ways. One morning you wake up and realize you haven't checked his profile in weeks. One night you listen to your favorite song and it doesn't hurt anymore. And one day you walk past the places you once shared and realize your heart doesn't break, it just remembers. That's how healing found me. Quietly, gradually, in the spaces where I used to cry. It started with the simple act of choosing myself. At first it felt wrong, selfish even, to put myself first after loving someone so much. But I kept reminding myself I deserved the love I kept giving away. So I stopped waiting for apologies that would never come. I stopped rewriting the story in my head, trying to make sense of his betrayal. And I stopped letting his memory decide how my heart should feel. I began to live again slowly, like a child learning to walk. I took long walks in the morning just to breathe. I learned to cook meals for one and still make them beautiful. I spent nights watching the moon, talking to myself like an old friend. And with every small thing I did for myself, I began to build a life where he no longer existed. But healing isn't linear. Some days I felt strong. Other days I found myself scrolling through old photos, wondering how something so beautiful could end so cruelly. And every time I felt that ache, I whispered to myself, "You've already survived worse. Keep going." One evening, months after he left, I saw him again. It was by chance at a small coffee shop I hadn't visited in ages. He was sitting at a table near the window, laughing with someone new. For a second, time froze. The world faded into a distant hum. And there he was, the man I once thought I couldn't live without. He saw me. Our eyes met for a brief second. And in that moment, I expected the pain to return, the flood of memories, the tears. But there was nothing, just silence. Peaceful, liberating silence. He gave me a small nod, a polite smile. And I smiled back genuinely. Not to prove anything, not to show I had moved on. But because, finally, I had as I walked out of that coffee shop, something inside me felt different. It wasn't joy. It wasn't sadness. It was freedom. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like his story was still holding me hostage. I had turned the last page and closed the book. That night, I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea and watched the sky turn dark. The same sky I once stared at through tears. The same stars that once witnessed my heartbreak. But this time, I wasn't crying. I was breathing. I was calm. I was me again. And maybe that's what healing really is. Not forgetting what broke you, but remembering it without letting it define you. Because sometimes love isn't meant to stay. It's meant to teach. He taught me that love without respect isn't love. He taught me that silence can be louder than words. And most importantly, he taught me that no one can complete you, because you were never incomplete to begin with. I no longer hate him. I don't even miss him. I simply wish him peace, the same peace I had to fight so hard to find. Because I've learned that forgiveness isn't for them. It's for us. It's the key that unlocks the cage we build from our pain. And on that quiet night, as I looked at the sky, I realized something profound. I wasn't waiting for anyone anymore. Not for a text. Not for closure. Not for him. The only person I was waiting for was myself. And she was finally here. I smiled and whispered to the wind, "I made it. No tears. No sadness. Just gratitude." That was the day I truly stopped crying for him. Not because the pain disappeared, but because I had learned to live beyond it. Because every ending, no matter how cruel, carries within it a new beginning, and mine had finally arrived. If my story reached your heart, take a moment to share it. Someone out there might need to hear that healing is possible, that pain isn't permanent, and that love, real love, always begins within yourself. Subscribe if you believe that no heartbreak, no betrayal, no loss can take away the strength you already carry. Because somewhere, someone is still learning how to stop crying, and maybe your strength will help them too.